You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So for those of you that are waiting for your lottery number to hit, not necessarily the lottery, like the state lottery before the Olympics, I'm going to tell you right now, pack your patience and expect to be disappointed. This LA 28 Olympic lottery thing to purchase tickets was an absolute disaster. It was so poorly done. I'm actually pretty ticked off. I thought it was ridiculous. There was all this hype, right? We had to log into this queue just to put your name into the lottery, and you had to wait for like 40 minutes just to get your name in. And so what I did is I put a lottery in for my husband, and then I had my adult children also sign up. And you know, by the time each of us got, different lottery times to come in, and I finally got my lottery time, I didn't even try. I just, go on the site, and I got the same message that we got for one of my sons who was able to get one of the first rounds where, sorry, unavailable. We have nothing available for the artistic gymnastics. Nope, we don't have these available. You could, and then for some, preliminary match, the only things available were in the thousands or $2,000 range per ticket. I go, are you kidding me? So apparently you're going to see all these articles saying we sold tickets. The Olympic Committee's like, well, we sold tickets for $28. You're going to be like, to whom? Who got $28 tickets? They're claiming that the pre-lottery sale, I guess there's going to be events in Oklahoma City as well as L.A. So you know how you saw with Milan Olympics, you saw different areas of the country being used for the Olympics. Same thing with the U.S. So Oklahoma City and L.A. are the two major cities, and I did agree with the fact that locals will have access to it because the locals, the Olympics is able to be there. So they allowed the locals to get tickets, but I'm even hearing even the locals who got tickets before the lottery, early groups, that there was no $28 tickets available. Maybe they got sucked up the first second. But my problem with that is if you want Americans to support the Olympics and you want Americans to help, advertise it and promote it, don't tick them off by basically 3 years or 2 years prior going, sorry, 2.5 years prior saying, sorry, you're not going to have, access. I mean, that kind of stinks. Now, yes, I could have gotten access if I wanted to spend $2,500 for a ticket. And I got 5 of us. I mean, between my kids and my son who's getting married, because 2.5 years from now, I mean, our family is growing, thank God. And no, I'm not going to spend that kind of money, especially when it's not even a final. I've always wanted to go to the Olympics where I could be there when Michael Phelps won his gold or Simone Biles won her gold and all that. You can't even touch those. And, you're hearing of these cases where there was I think a 24% service fee. This 24% service fee is supposed to go to necessities like customer service during the games. Well, if we're paying a 24% service fee, then what's the $2,500 ticket money going to? It's not going to the athletes. I thought the ticket price is going for the service fee. Come on, man. And so this is ridiculous. So these $28 tickets, whoever got them, good for you. But no. Somebody spent $1,200. They were able to get it down to $1,200, but they have to see the rhythmic. I mean, God bless all athletes, but the rhythmic I couldn't really watch well. I know it's very cool with the ribbon and all that, but I want to see running and racing and swimming and boxing and basketball. But there was a $558 ticket for swimming, and she didn't want to pay that because it was $558 for a 2-hour event. And then another LA resident said he spent $11,000 on 8 tickets for track and field events. $400 of that was the service fee. $11,000 for 8 tickets. I still can't find them that cheap. So I am not going to spend that kind of money to go to the Olympics. I mean, maybe I'll get a media pass and I might cover, some of the events. But it really, really stinks that a lot of these things are so untouchable to the average American and the average, we don't want just rich people to be at F1 or to be in Allegiant Stadium or to go, and we want everybody having access to it. We also want kids to have access to it. But the average person is not going to be spending that kind of money. I mean, they might barely get a ticket or two, but for the kids as well. I mean, if I wanted to go to the Olympics and I had maybe $1,000 burning a hole in my pocket, and I could only get 2 $5 tickets, maybe I'd say, okay, kids, you don't know what's going on anyway. You're young, stay with grandma. Me and hubby would go. But no, I want them to watch. I want them to be a part of that. And they're making it impossible. Why does it have to be so expensive? Now, I get hosting the Olympics is expensive. And so I guess they're hoping that with the ticket prices, that's how they pay it off. But just looking at I've been to LA, I've lived in LA. It's going to be miserable trying to get to the event. So you're going to be spending this kind of money with crowds, with no parking, and I bet they're going to charge for parking too. And I bet it's going to be a pretty penny. That's one problem people have with the Golden Knights games. You finally get your ticket. You spend a lot of money for the Golden Knights ticket. You're getting ready to go. And then when you try to find parking, they try to charge you $45 for parking in the nearby hotels. You're like, come on, man. And so I think by the time 2028 comes around, a lot of people are going to be like, to heck with this. Plus, I have an issue buying a ticket for something 2 years in advance. I don't know what my life's going to be 2 years from now. I don't even know if I'm going to be in Nevada and be that close to L.A. So I know a lot of people are getting excited about this. They want to show their patriotism. They want to show what I would maybe do if I were you is then host, these local parties, where you could watch because you're going to be like mad. You're going to be like, okay, to heck with this. Maybe, start planning your host party, things like that. For the Olympics, there's a lot of things you could do, and you'll be able to see the events even close up, rather than being in nosebleed seats for $1,000 a pop. But honestly, they really disappointed because they got us all worked up years in advance. Most of us are realizing we're not going to be able to go, and now we're just throwing shade on it, and it's a shame because it is the Olympics. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So China's mad at Trump. What else is new? Welcome back. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. So this U.S. blockade of Iran's ports are now going into day 2. Washington is pressuring Iran to relinquish control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very critical passage for the shipments of oil, fertilizer, goods, cargo, and Iran is mad. They are threatening to retaliate, and China has, I think, defied the blockade. They had one of their ships just go right through and race out of there. And it looks chaotic, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, this is, possibly a strategy to get Iran, a very non-bloody strategy, to get Iran back to the negotiating table. Because when Iran said, oh, yeah, we'll do a ceasefire, we want a ceasefire and we'll agree to this. And then they said, well, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get money and reparations and we're going to get to nuclear enrich. And you're like, well, the U.S., that's no deal. What are you talking about? And so their PR campaigns and propaganda campaigns are unfortunately getting the front page of America's newspapers when it's wrong. Well, this blockade to hopefully bring Tehran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard regime to the table is ticking off other countries. I would think they wouldn't be upset because, remember, there's mines. Iran booby-trapped the area. And so for America to try to clean that up and make sure it's safe again, and it is America's duty because they and Israel, decided that this was, even though Iran was going to attack also, this was, this was part of America's doing to stop Iran from having nuclear war and continuing to fund terrorists, etc. And so for them to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz is good, then their ships that they moved into the area are now getting to work. And then they may be escorting other ships in other countries in, and it might slow things down. It's not going to be a quick process. Yet China's mad. China says this is a dangerous and irresponsible move. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jinkun came to the U.S. He said this and said with the temporary ceasefire agreement still in place, the United States ramped up military deployment and resorted to a targeted blockade. This will only aggravate confrontation, escalate tension, undermine the already fragile ceasefire, and further jeopardize safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Guo said it was a dangerous and irresponsible move. But I was under the impression that during the ceasefire, Iran didn't let ships go. I think they maybe let a handful of them go. So I'm under the impression that Iran was not holding up their end of the bargain. And so, the way things get interpreted and then reported is how people think the story goes. And you're looking at this going, what are they talking about? So Gao said China believes the only and complete ceasefire can fundamentally create conditions for easing the situation. They said we urge relevant parties to honor the ceasefire agreement, stick to the direction of peace talks, and take concrete actions. To de-escalate the situation so that normal traffic via the strait will be able to resume as soon as possible. Well, we were in a ceasefire and the normal traffic didn't resume. We don't have time for Iran to mess around and continue this back and forth and stall routine, because what is in Iran's best interest? To stall. The ceasefire helps them regroup, helps them get more ammo, helps them, get back online with their communications. So, China saying, nah, you should just kind of still lay low while we're in this ceasefire period, is obviously a help to Iran, where China should be saying, okay, let's just stop this. Iran, quit being idiots. Let's, move forward. So White House spokesperson Olivia Wales told Fox News that the Iranians' desperation for a deal is only increasing, with President Trump's highly effective naval blockade in effect. They said the president is rightfully securing the Strait of Hormuz to ensure freedom of navigation for all ships traveling to non-Iranian ports, ending the Iranian extortion of the world and applying pressure on Iran's crumbling economy as big, beautiful tankers head to the Gulf of America. That was her response. President Trump and his negotiating team have made the United States red lines very clear and will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, which is something that is in all of our best interest. The one thing we have seen with Iran is they are not going to make decisions that won't hurt themselves. See, everybody thinks no one's going to, send a nuclear weapon because it could hurt their own country. Iran is already hurting their country. They've slaughtered allegedly 40 to 50,000 plus of their own citizens. They don't care. They're funding Hamas suicide attacks. I mean, they are willing to give people up for the quote unquote greater cause. Iran should never have access to a nuclear weapon. This regime. It's frightening. And nobody's really dealt with it. And everyone's like, well, you know what? We'll try to all be friends. We'll all try to get along. And meanwhile, they were getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And they got so strong that Hamas was able to infiltrate Israel and do the damage that they did. Killing thousands, raping, beheading, fracturing kids' pelvis when they raped them, and then almost bringing the Middle East into another war. And Iran funded that. And they're funding Hezbollah. So you don't tell me that this wasn't necessary. This wasn't our fight. This is something that should have been done. Where's NATO? Where's the UN? No? Everybody's like, oh, we're just going to wait until there's a problem. And then when there's a problem, they're like, huh? It's interesting. When I study World War II and the rise of the Nazi regime, you're looking at this going, didn't other countries see the writing on the walls? I mean, this wasn't a surprise. Didn't they see this? No, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to. Even America had an isolationist attitude. My family was not able to escape to America. They had to escape to Israel, and thank God Israel gave them a home to escape to, which is why it's so important for there to be Israel. Israel has a very tiny sliver of land in all of the Middle East, but it's the only place where people can feel, even LGBTQAI plus members, where people could feel free. And it's a the isolationist attitude and the not seeing the writing on the wall. They did see. They were just hoping it wouldn't get worse. It wouldn't get worse, and it got worse. And that's kind of the same attitude they're having now with Iran. Well, let's just pray. Let's just, it's not going to be our fight. And why? It's because every politician has a term. And their terms is what's on their mind. Well, let the next president or the next prime minister or the next chancellor deal with that. I don't want to lose my seat in office because I address this problem now. I'll play it safe. So nobody's doing anything. Meanwhile, we're looking at a major catastrophe. So with the Strait of Hormuz, if America can make sure it's safe, do something about the mines that were hastily thrown there by Iran, make sure people could go through where nobody could get hurt, then this could be a start of something that is really going to reshape, the grip that Iran has on the Middle East, terrorism, and other things. Not to mention, we might actually see the end of the Russia-Ukraine war. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Iran is upset. They've condemned the blockade as piracy, vowed to respond with force. Apparently, they have these small little boats, like we saw drug dealers using to try to bring their drugs to America. Trump said he could deal with those pretty quickly. So, Iran is holding out longer than we thought they would. But, they thought that, running the Strait of Hormuz would put things in their favor. And now they played all their cards. So now we know what they have up their sleeve. And Trump's taking the offense on that, which I think needs to be done. Once we saw Iran try to hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage, no, not going to happen. And you see these countries mad at the U.S. and taking Iran's side? Are you kidding me? I thought all these countries wanted the Russia-Ukraine war to end. Iran's helping Russia, supplying them drones. There's such hypocrisy when it comes to all these other leaders, and it makes no sense to me. So hopefully this is the start of the end. I mean, Iran might have some other tricks up their sleeves, but the Strait of Hormuz was one of the biggest cards they could play, and they played it wrong. And now America's in control. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. The problem is whatever they say, can you believe them? Whatever deal they come up with, if they do become desperate, they're not going to give up, because whoever agrees to a deal like that gets killed. We'll see. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. One of the best things I ever did was had kids, and I had 2 of them. Could I afford to have kids at the time? No. Oh God, no. I was in residency. I was making probably an average of about $1 an hour, right? I was working 100-hour weeks, 36-hour shifts back to back, and the idea of having kids was frightening. But I knew there was never going to be a good time to have them. I also knew that having kids would be expensive. I didn't know it was going to be this expensive. So another report, I remember a few years ago, we reported that it costs about $250,000 to $300,000 to raise a kid. Well, LendingTree has another study out now. As of 2026, it costs over $300,000 to raise a child. It's a lot of money. Now, for those of you that are living paycheck to paycheck and you're thinking to yourself, raising a kid, how do I do it? Well, we have to figure out how to do it, because the average person who had kids before us, I mean, my family was poor, and, thank God they decided to still give birth and have kids. If anybody in my family waited until they were rich to have kids, we would have never been able to make it. And so I really don't like hearing these studies and seeing these headlines and this clickbait, because we have a big issue with our Generation Z population going, well, I can't afford to have a kid, so I'm not going to do it. And everybody agrees with that thinking. They're like, well, yeah, it's too expensive to have a kid. It's always been expensive to have a kid, especially if you have a kid that wants to do sports. Okay, you go broke trying to pay for that kid's sports and trying to, the soccer and the cleats and then the lacrosse equipment. And I mean, my kids were in baseball and soccer and swim and football. And it's going to cost a pretty penny. But let me tell you what the study showed, and then we'll talk about how to, not become extinct in the human race because it costs so much. So LendingTree said the average cost of having a kid cost $303,000, 418 cents. After tax exemptions and credits, this is up 1.9% from a year ago. American parents are paying an average of $16,857 annually. And according to New York Post, $29,325 during each of the child's first 5 years. A more expensive time of life due to infant and toddler daycare. Now, I find that interesting because a lot of parents aren't working now. We have fewer people going to the office. We still have a lot of people doing remote or they're working from home. And so I'm finding there are fewer people and I'm seeing this because when I see patients and I'll ask them, I'll go, is your child at daycare? More and more of these parents are saying, no, we don't do daycare. Whereas just, pre-COVID, it was everybody was in daycare because, parents had to work. My kids, I only got 2 weeks off for my first baby. And then after I gave birth to Brock, I went back to work in 3 days. And so we were working a lot. We're taking the babies to work, finding somebody to, so I find that interesting that the price has gone up, even though fewer people are using daycare. But still, it's still expensive. And so Matt Schultz, which is chief consumer finance analyst at LendingTree and author of the study, said some parents are already making sacrifices. They're dining out less, deciding if it makes sense for somebody to just stay at home with the kids rather than pay for daycare or be in the workforce. And so they're crunching their numbers. Meanwhile, fertility rates are hitting record lows. In 2025, it has been at the most low in terms of having a baby. Among the costs measured by LendingTree analysis, they looked at rent, food, apparel, transportation, and insurance, but infant daycare tops the list at $17,264 a year. In California, it could cost about $22,000. New Yorkers, $20,000 a year. Now, I know Zoran Mamdani wants to do free daycare, but again, what's difficult about that is who's paying for that? How are you paying for and vetting the teachers and the facility it's going to cost somebody money. And so people's taxes are going to go up to pay for free daycare. And it's, are they going to have the staff? Are they going to, do the proper vetting? Are they going, it's a government run daycare center. Would it be better than private? Who knows? But, there's a lot of questions on how that's going to be done. So they said there are several states where parents are going to have to pay even more, $300,000. In fact, Hawaii, it will cost $412,000 to raise a child. In Alaska, $365,000. Maryland, $326,000. California is the fourth expensive state at $312,000. So, what do we do? All right, what's happening here? So, how have lower income families done it? It wasn't easy. Yeah, it was getting, finding babysitters, grouping together. What a lot of families do is strengthen numbers. So there's an aunt or uncle or somebody or a grandma. And now a lot of families, they're just, separated across the United States. But if you have family communities, like I see with a lot of Latina families, where you have, the families all close by, there's a lot you could do and you could work in numbers. Raising a kid and clothes and things like that. One thing that I found very beneficial was a school with a uniform. Now I have boys, so we didn't have to always buy different outfits. All they needed was a pair of khaki pants or whatever. But the idea of school and clothes, that costs a lot. And especially when, you went to public school like I did, and the girls were really mean, saying, you wore that already. You keep wearing that. Don't you have any other clothes? And I'm like, well, no, we're poor. I don't have a lot of other clothes. I maybe have 3-4 outfits. That's what I'm wearing. So up yours. So if we later with schools do school uniforms, that could save a lot of money. Although these uniform companies charge ridiculously, but I saved a lot of money with that. You need good shoes. I think we need to look at how our shoe prices are done, because a lot of these shoes are getting really expensive, and you should be able to get good shoes. But we could work with that. Medical care, expensive. All right, there's that costs a lot. If you have to take your child in every 2 months for another vaccine, and you're paying for a visit, if your child visits aren't getting covered, or there's something else going on, that we got to look at that. Obamacare is supposed to cover that, but from what I'm hearing, parents are like, I have to take off work to take my child in every 2 months. It's not, I can't do that. So we have to, there's a lot of things that I think we could look at, where we could do vaccines at school or something, to help mitigate some of the cost and loss of work. But, I think we also don't know how to spend. Kids ask for dessert. There's no dessert. Why are you spending dessert money? Kids want dessert after every meal, because their little Lunchables and things like that always have a cookie. No, we don't do dessert. You can save money there. We don't drink soda. Soda's expensive. No, you drink water and milk. All right, your juice can be half diluted. So now a big bottle of juice will last longer because you're half diluting it because they don't need that much sugar. There's a lot of things you could do. Hand-me-downs are fantastic. You guys could share outfits. All right, you could share certain things. Don't burn holes in them. Hand-me-downs, that was brilliant. Diapers are very expensive. And so one of our family members did cloth diapers. Now, I couldn't imagine that because I was always on the run. But, if there's a way to do diapers and reusable ones, I mean, that is going to save you bank. In fact, one of the smartest things I saw our friend's daughter do with a baby shower is they offered a raffle. And they said, bring a bag of diapers to the baby shower and you'll win a prize. Or you'll be in a lottery for a prize. Well, that's brilliant because they had a whole room then full of diapers of everybody coming into the baby shower. Diapers are expensive. And some kids potty train quick, some don't. And we don't want to force a kid to potty train sooner than later. But maybe, we relook at what we're spending as it pertains to that. Formula is expensive. I'm noticing a lot of parents are going back to breastfeeding because formula can be pretty costly and breastfeeding is free. So, the $300,000 is a lot of money. And I think we could bring that amount down. I really do. I just don't want these headlines deterring people from having kids. All right. It is always a struggle. It is. It's never going to be easy. You're never going to feel like you're the right time. But if you're waiting to have $300,000 in the bank to have a kid, we're going extinct. No one's going to have a kid. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi everybody, it's Dr. Dahlia. As many of you know, I lost another colleague to suicide, and tragically tens of thousands of Americans, including hundreds of physicians, take their lives each year. Why is suicide so common? Why doctors? Even medical students have alarming suicide rates. Nurse burnout is at an all-time high. Maybe it's the monstrous workloads we face every day. Maybe it's because of burnout, malpractice suits, online reviews. Medicine has changed so rapidly that it's almost unrecognizable to those of us who entered this field and wanted to take it by storm. But there's not a lot of resources out there for healthcare providers who deny that they are struggling or at risk. So my book, The Depressed Doctor, aims to change that for both the physician and medical student and anyone else who is struggling. Find The Depressed Doctor on Amazon or at drdahlia.com. And if you are currently struggling, call or text 988, the National Suicide Prevention and Crisis Hotline. Don't wait. The silence is killing us. Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly. So one industry that I find really fascinating is the doorman industry. Now, I have never had a doorman. I've never lived in a place that was that bougie, that needed, somebody to be there to open the doors and accept the packages and all that. I've met many doormen and they're amazing. They're really, really cool. I like these guys, but it's a fascinating industry that's out there. Apparently, there are, from what I understand, 27,000 door people, I guess they call them. and 28,000 are unionized, but only currently about a third of them are actually employed. The majority of them are men. You do have some women who are, I guess they would call them door people. But the doorman is the doorman here, check with the doorman. That's a very, very common phrase. But now that, we have a small percentage who are women, I guess they're starting to call them door people. And when I saw a story about how these doormen are struggling financially, and I read that some of them only make about 40 grand a year. Some might make up to 65 grand a year. And they live in New York City or Jersey or any of the tri-state area because they have to be a doorman for a building in Manhattan. You don't really see a lot of them in other places. I mean, you might have like some high rises and things like that in various cities, but New York City is kind of the doorman capital, of America. And when you look at how low their salary is, you wonder, why would they do that? I mean, I guess the role of a doorman is to accept all the packages, open the door for people. So if you're coming in with your own packages, they got the door for you. They may also get the elevator for you. They provide a form of security. If somebody wants to come into your apartment building, they work closely with security. And I mean, I always lived in an apartment. A pizza was coming, a food delivery. I mean, I went downstairs or they came up to the apartment, but these doormen handle all that. And then they let you know that your order is, and then you could come down and get the order and all that. And so they're very busy. I mean, if they're manning an apartment complex, they're extremely busy. Well, one of my family members had lived in, not my family, but my husband's family member had lived in a New York apartment building. And they said that they had to tip that doorman a lot of money. And I'm like, what's a lot? A few $100s? No, thousands. I was like, really? I go, these guys might make bank. I mean, these guys are making bank. Well, no, they're not. If they're only making 45 a year, let's say on average, that's not covering much. And so, as we're looking at, the high costs in New York and the high cost of housing and all that, you start to wonder if a lot of these jobs are going to be replaced. And doormen, they've kind of alluded to as, they're part of the apartment walls or structure or furniture, because you have a good doorman. They don't want to go and you don't want them to go. And so you don't have as much turnover in that industry. And it's an industry that I think we could learn a lot of because of customer service, because of personal touch. Somebody knows you, they know you, they know exactly, every single tenant. So they'll know if something doesn't seem right. The amount of security, the layer that they provide, even if they aren't security, but just knowing and understanding if something's not right, and being there to accept a package and being that barrier between, the apartment and the outside. I mean, that's some value. Like I said, I've never lived in an area like that. Where it's that fancy, where you need a doorman. All my apartments, I mean, you leave the door, you fall into a pool with no water. That's just the types of apartments I always lived in. But it's interesting to see that as AI and as people are starting to become more, shall we say, conservative with their spending, you wonder if there's going to be, a massive change in this type of industry where, you just hit a button, you put the button in, it tells you, it notifies, and the doors are automatic. And we think we could replace everybody with a computer or with AI, just like we're seeing with medicine. How people are disliking talking to a human who could tell them no when it comes to an antibiotic or pain medication, but they could go to a computer and hope that the computer will do the job for them. I told you, I'm right now having a major problem with the AI of Meta and Facebook, because I was trying to pay for some sponsorship, some ads, and somehow their software rejected every one of my credit cards, even though the credit cards are active. And when I write, they give me a bot and they go, we know you're trying to pay a payment, but we've disabled your account. And I'm like, so you don't even want the money that I was paying on time? And so I don't want AI to take over. I don't want to lose the doorman. I don't want to lose the super, but this is where we're going. In terms of the thousands of dollars of tips, from what I understand in some of these places, that to me would be kind of hard, because I might like give like a $500 Christmas bonus and then come to find out that was really, really low because other people were dropping $2,000 on their doorman or more. So that's another reason why I don't, think I could, survive in New York City, because I would probably be under tipping when I think I'm tipping really good. I looked online. They said a nice Christmas bonus is $100. That's not what I heard. I heard people live in New York. No, you give a lot of money, and you should make them feel, you should show your gratitude, because, as I said, these guys provide security, provide a lot of help. But my issue with that is I would hate to be the one that tipped the lowest, and then they're like, oh man, this is Dahlia's package. You know what? She could get it when and I'm thinking to myself, I gave that guy $500. Man, 5 C notes. Wow, he must be loving me. So you almost have to talk to everybody else and find out how much you're tipping. But I'm sure nobody's gonna convey that, because they want to get the best service. So I'm not here to exhaust the topic of something that really doesn't affect a lot of us, but it's one of the aspects that we've had that in some societies that have existed now for a while, and that are going to be gone soon. I mean, you're not going to hear of a doorman. You're not going to hear of, a family physician. You're not going to hear of these people, because they're going to be replaced by something else. The family doc is going to be replaced, where we take care of the whole family and we follow you throughout the longitudinal. That's not happening now that everybody keeps losing their doctor, or their doctor gets hired or fired. I don't like that. I want there to still be some old school, of aspects to our society, where we could look back and go, well, that was a telephone. That's a radio. Radios are important. Don't get rid of radios. That's part of the emergency broadcast system. And you have people saying, well, we don't need radio. They're irrelevant now. They're obsolete. No, they're not. Because when the power goes out or the cell tower goes out, you're going to need to know what to do in a hurricane or tornado. So if you do have a doorman, you're lucky. Really cool. Be nice to them. They have to stand most of the time. They have to cater to people and cater to a whole bunch of, shall we say, personalities. But apparently what's happening in New York with, high rent and all that, you're just finding that people are looking at, I guess what happens is they all share the cost of that. I guess the apartment management fees, maybe it's like a homeowners association. I don't know. But we're going to start to see people say, I don't want to pay for that. I'll get my own DoorDash. I'll do my own security. I'm fine. And you'll just start to see just industries completely go away. And I don't know. I think that's sad. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.